They laughed when they saw her behind the wheel of a fuel tanker. Just a woman, just a driver, they thought. But when a convoy of armed mercenaries tried to hijack her load in the middle of nowhere, they discovered she was so much more. What does a former military instructor do when the road becomes a battlefield? The tanker roared low and steady over the cracked desert highway, its red paint dulled by dust, its chrome grille pitted with the scars of 100 hard routes. Nina Clayton, 38, kept both hands on the wheel, her posture alert but relaxed. Her gaze, hidden behind sunglasses, flicked to the rear view every few minutes. Not nervously, methodically, like clockwork. A torn map was taped to the dash with notes scribbled in black Sharpie. One route circled, bold, Border General Emergency Fuel. No delays. The CB radio crackled with static. Someone laughed through the channel, followed by a voice thick with mockery. Hope the lady tanker knows that road ain't got no shoulders. Might mess up her hair. Boys. More laughter. Nina didn't answer. She reached forward, twisted the volume down, and sipped lukewarm coffee from a dented thermos. Her hands, though calloused and marked by old scars, were steady. She had 9,000 gallons of diesel and aviation fuel in the tank behind her. Volatile, heavy, and irreplaceable for the rural hospital barely keeping the lights on. No escort, just her. Exactly how she wanted it. She arrived at Trucker's Haven, mile marker 142. The diner was low-roofed, sun-faded, and full of sweat-stained men. As Nina pushed through the door in her dark cargo pants and brown field jacket, the room paused. Not out of surprise, out of routine. A woman alone in a hauler was still a novelty here. The cashier gave her a nod. A bearded man near the coffee machine offered a lopsided grin. "Tanker yours?" he asked, eyes trailing toward the window. Nina grabbed a black coffee and nodded once. "Brave of you. That's not a road I'd take with a load like that. Especially not with all the rumors lately." "Rumors?" she asked casually. 3 rigs vanished last month off Highway 9. Empty trailers found, cabs torched. No bodies. Some say smugglers, others say cartel. Either way, smart money's on staying near the border patrol zones. Nina sipped quietly, then turned to leave. As she passed, someone at a booth muttered, "Bet she's just hauling water and wants to look cool." Outside, as she checked the straps on the tanker, a dusty white pickup rolled slowly past. No plates, blacked out windows. It didn't stop. She let her hand rest near the small magnetized compartment beneath the driver's step. Still sealed, still dry, back on the road. Afternoon heat shimmered across the asphalt. The sun was a pale fireball in the sky, the tanker casting a long shadow over scrub and dust. Nina turned the CB back up. Silence. No chatter. Not even traffic updates. That was rare. She tapped once on the dash, then glanced at a sticky note tucked under the fuel gauge. It read, "Avoid predictable patterns. Predictability gets people killed." From the glove box, she pulled a laminated photo. A group of young soldiers, all muddy smiles, standing beside a Humvee. She touched the corner of the image, where one man had written in faded ink, "You're the calm in chaos, Clay. Don't forget it." She remembered them clearly as if it were yesterday. The training field burned with heat and grit. A younger Nina shouted orders over engine growls. "Front axle out? You pivot on the terrain. Tanks jammed? Make the fuel your weapon. Everything is a tool, if you're calm enough to use it." A younger corporal grinned. "You ever actually had to use this stuff, ma'am?" She paused. "Once. Never again." Back in the present, the pickup reappeared in her mirror, distant but steady. It wasn't passing. It wasn't pulling back. She stopped again at mile 183, at a deserted rest area. Nina stopped for a short time just to get some water and go to the bathroom, then went to check the axles. No debris, no tampering. But she noticed something strange. The dust pattern around her trailer was disturbed. Boot prints. Fresh. She circled back, crouched low, and scanned under the chassis. A small wire cut and coiled. A tracker, maybe, removed or planted and then taken back. The hairs on her neck stood up. She continued her journey. She had an important mission. And then night fell. The desert turned black quickly. Stars exploded overhead. The CB radio finally spoke again, but not with words. Static. A soft double click. Then silence. Someone was signaling. But not to her. She flicked off the headlights for 10 seconds, let her eyes adjust. A faint red glint in the hills. Another vehicle. Parked, maybe. Watching. She kept the truck rolling, slow and steady. No sudden moves. She reached beneath her seat and retrieved a small, military-grade flashlight with a strobe setting. Then, from the glove box, an old compass, a terrain map, and a folded piece of paper marked with 3 emergency detours, all handwritten, all memorized. Nina had made a promise years ago to never go back to that world of tactics and threats. But now, with the road empty, the radio quiet, and 9,000 gallons of flammable pressure behind her, she could feel it rising. That old clarity, that cold readiness. As the highway curved toward Deadman's Ridge, she shifted gears and whispered, "All right then, let's see if you boys know how to dance." And the road swallowed her whole. The road narrowed as Nina turned onto Deadman's Ridge. A 2-lane ribbon cut through jagged rock and brush, hemmed in by steep hills and the kind of silence that pressed against the windshield. The grade steepened, her tachometer climbing slowly with each turn. Wind howled through the open gullies, and the air smelled of sand and oil. She downshifted, keeping the tanker steady through a tight hairpin. In the mirror, the white pickup returned, closer now, joined by a dark off-road SUV hugging the tree line. No more games. They weren't tailing her out of curiosity anymore. They were closing in. Nina reached for the CB mic, thumbing the push-to-talk. Channel 7 Alpha. Open. Anyone with ears, this is Tanker 19 inbound on Ridge 9. I've got shadows. Repeat. I've got company without clearance. Only static answered, then a sharp click. 2 short bursts. Then another. Suddenly, a second voice cut through. Rough but familiar. Clayton? This is Corporal Reyes. Border Patrol Mobile Unit Bravo. You got ears. She froze. Reyes. One of her best trainees from her instructor years. A quiet kid with sharp instincts and a perfect memory for terrain maps. I read you, she replied calmly. You monitoring this region? Only because of chatter we picked up 2 hours ago. Encrypted. Intel said a high-value fuel transport might get hit. Didn't know it was you, ma'am. Nina clenched her jaw. How far are you? 40 minutes back. Too far. But I'm patching a ping to your last GPS push. Can you get off the ridge? She looked ahead. More curves, blind turns, a steep drop to her right. Not without a plan, she said. Then, almost to herself, but maybe with one. Her eyes scanned the terrain. A narrow fire road peeled off to the left, half overgrown and barely visible. No signs, no rail. It wound into a thick cluster of pines that clung to the mountainside like a secret. She took it. The tanker groaned as its tires hit uneven dirt, bouncing over ruts and debris. The suspension squealed. In her mirror, the white pickup hesitated but followed. Then came the SUV. And behind it, more lights. No turning back now. She cut the headlights and let the moon guide her. The trees thickened, shadows swallowing the truck whole. The road narrowed, nearly brushing the tank's sides. But she knew how to keep a heavy load stable in close quarters. From a locked side panel, she retrieved a small satchel. 2 smoke flares, a high-lumen spotlight, and a few salvaged thermal patches. Improvised tools. She wouldn't outrun them, but she could lose them. She stopped briefly at a fork in the trail. Jumping down, she tore a strip of rubber tubing from an old hose and wrapped one of the flares with it. Then she wedged it under a fallen log and lit it. Red smoke poured upward, dense and crawling. She moved fast. Back in the cab, she turned left and accelerated hard. The ambushers followed her trail straight into the decoy. Nina cut wide through a ravine and up a logging ramp she remembered from training drills years ago. It was steep, slick with pine needles and choked with fallen branches. Perfect. She drove the tanker straight up, swinging the rear to wedge against a boulder. Then she shut everything off, lights, engine, even the dash backlight. Silence. She slipped out and crouched behind the cab, scanning below with a monocular. One car passed under, right into the smoke. The driver panicked, engine revving, brakes squealing. A second truck followed too close and clipped it. Metal crunched. Yelling, she activated the spotlight. The sudden flood of white light blinded them all. Night vision rendered useless. The ambushers scrambled behind doors and rocks. Nina threw a second flare down the slope, this one timed, trailing sparks and igniting a bed of dry leaves. Panic. Voices shouted orders. She heard someone yell, "She's flanking us. She's got backup." She didn't, but she didn't need it yet. She moved the tanker again, only slightly, to the next position along the tree line. Always silent, always one step ahead. From her pocket, she pulled a heat strip and slapped it onto a metal signpost, throwing her own thermal signal away from the truck's true location. Back on radio, Reyes called again. "You've got movement on your 6, ma'am. Thermal signatures flaring up near your last ping. We're tracking heat, but can't see who's behind it. Could be Merc drones. You got visibility?" "I've got them confused and tired," she replied. "But they're learning. They're Mercs, Nina. Not amateurs. I can tell. They're not panicking anymore. They brought more than rifles, didn't they?" She hesitated. Then, "They brought nets. And bolt cutters." She knew what that meant. They weren't after her. They wanted the cargo, and to sell it or use it. Maybe both. "You still on the way, Reyes?" "I'll be there in 20 minutes. I've called for local backup, but you're in dead zones. They won't move until I do. Then I hold." She pulled the tanker deeper into the woods and triggered the auxiliary floodlight on a 30-second delay. Then she climbed into the sleeper compartment, removed a panel in the wall, and accessed an old steel box. Inside, a coil of industrial-grade tape, flex cuffs, and a folded cloth map. She opened it on the dash. Circled an X near a broken bridge, she remembered. 1 lane only, no structural support for weight over 5 tons. A trap. In the rearview mirror, another vehicle moved through the trees, slower this time. Searching. They had lost the lead but not the will. She started the engine again, low idle, then throttled just enough to pull away. Smoke lingered behind her. Light danced among the trees like ghosts. Ahead, the bridge. And behind her, the hunt wasn't over. The truck rumbled low through a tight gully, its tires gripping uneven earth as tree limbs clawed at the side mirrors. Nina kept the engine in low gear, easing the tanker uphill through a path that barely deserved the name. Every inch felt earned. Behind her, faint engine noises echoed through the trees. They were still following, more careful now, slower but closing. She checked the fuel gauge. Less than half left. Still thousands of gallons in the tank, but not a drop to waste. At the edge of a small clearing, she brought the truck to a stop. The engine idled as she stepped out, boots crunching on dry needles. She moved fast but deliberately, unlocking a side compartment bolted into the tanker frame. From inside, she pulled one of the spare tires, wrapped tightly in canvas, and an old thermal blanket she'd stored for emergency overnighting. Nothing here was improvised. Everything had a purpose. She positioned the tire upright on a shallow incline just off the trail and wrapped the thermal blanket around it, then added a chemical hand warmer from her emergency kit. In a thermal scan, it would look like a truck idling in place, easy bait. Nina dropped another heat patch near a hubcap tucked into the grass, then threw a small mirror from her repair kit nearby to reflect stray light. Disorientation didn't need volume, just confusion. Back inside the cab, she checked the engine temperature. Still high, still trackable. She reached under the dash, pulled out a sealed canvas pouch and unrolled it. A few road flares, a siphon hose, and a small metal catch meant for maintenance work. She hesitated, then whispered to herself, "Not more than a gallon. That's all I give them." She knelt beneath the tanker, opened a secondary drain valve, and captured a precise amount of diesel into the catch. With the siphon hose, she dripped a trail down the slope, thin, almost invisible. It wasn't enough to burn, just enough to slip. Once back behind the wheel, she reversed carefully, letting the tires coat in the slick trail. Then she moved forward again and lit a flare, red, quiet, smoke-rich, and dropped it behind her. A soft hiss, then a bloom of smoke. Controlled, measured. The lead pursuer crept into view, an off-road vehicle with a steel bumper and blackout lights. The driver slowed, confused by the smoke, then revved forward. His tires hit the trail of diesel and spun out. The vehicle lost traction, fishtailed, and slammed sideways into a half-buried log. The engine stalled. A second vehicle behind it hesitated, too late. Clipped the first and spun sideways, blocking the path. Nina didn't wait. She threw the truck into gear and took a tight uphill curve that wound around a rock ledge. As she drove, the noise of panic echoed behind her. Shouting, metal creaking, someone calling for backup. The terrain narrowed again, funneling her toward a ridge bridge, old, wooden, and barely wide enough for her wheels. But she remembered this bridge. Years ago, during a training exercise, she'd tested weight tolerances here with armored transports. The memory came uninvited, but sharp. A young recruit had panicked during a steep descent. Nina had walked beside the moving vehicle, guiding him through each meter, boots crunching in dust. "Look at the tires," she'd said. "Not the fall. Eyes where you are, not where you could be." He'd made it, and so had she dozens of times. No reason this would be different. Nina pulled to a stop just before the bridge. Stepping out, she scanned the structure. The central support beams were still intact, but two edge planks had dried and warped, weakened by sun and time. She placed a tire iron beneath one and subtly cracked it, making it look solid but unstable under weight. Then she reversed, looped wide around a boulder, and waited. She heard the drone buzz again. Too low, too deliberate. Not border patrol. Mercenary tech. Small, fast, infrared-enabled. Probably operated from one of the blacked-out SUVs, and they were catching false signals, chasing ghosts. The first vehicle that broke free from the gully reached the bridge too fast. The driver didn't hesitate. As soon as the front tires hit the warped plank, the wood gave out. The front axle collapsed, nose diving into the ridge. A second vehicle slammed on its brakes, swerved, and got caught sideways across the trail. Nina didn't miss the moment. She surged forward, closing the distance in seconds. Her tanker rammed the stalled SUV with a sharp, low grind. The force shoved the vehicle sideways into the edge rail, which snapped and sent the rear wheels into the void. The driver bailed just in time. Smoke from the earlier flare rolled in behind her, combining with the rising dust. Nina threw a broken mirror into the smoke, catching the light, bouncing it unpredictably. Voices screamed, disoriented. "Where is she?" "She's past the bridge. I think she's past. I can't see anything." She dropped her last heat pack on the opposite trail and climbed the ridge on foot to reach the original path where she'd circled around. The ambushers were confused, panicked, and scattered. One tried to run, but tripped over a strip of chain Nina had pulled from her tow kit and laid across the trail. By the time she reappeared with the tanker from the opposite side, most of them were coughing in the smoke, backs against trees, squinting through shattered goggles. She didn't draw a weapon. She didn't raise her voice. Just walked through the mess like a storm had already passed. With calm hands, she zip-tied wrists. With thick tape, she marked each group with a strip across their vests. Writing short, mocking words in marker. "Too slow. Try again. You followed the wrong one." It was over. Not a single shot fired. Just physics, pressure, planning, and 1,000 gallons of fuel. Still intact, still hers to deliver. She climbed back into the cab, shut the door with a firm click, and pulled out of the forest. The first rays of dawn lit the sky in soft pink and violet as Nina's battered red tanker rolled onto the final stretch of cracked asphalt. The hospital's emergency bay came into view, a squat concrete structure with satellite dishes, solar panels, and a rusted windsock flapping above the roof. She could feel the tremor of the tanker beneath her, an uneven tire, a weakened suspension. The cabin smelled of oil, sweat, and smoke. The dash flickered once, warning lights blinking lazily like a body running on fumes. Inside the cab, duct taped to the dashboard, a small handheld radio crackled on loop. "Repeat, delivery coordinates logged. Hostiles neutralized. Medical fuel en route. No escort needed." Nina reached for it and turned the volume up slightly before placing it on the passenger seat. A final breadcrumb for Reyes and the cavalry. She backed the truck carefully into the hospital's delivery zone. Tires hissing on concrete, the tank sides scorched and soot-streaked. 2 nurses rushed out, stunned into silence as they stared at the beaten machine and the woman stepping out of the cab. Her hair was damp from sweat, streaked with ash. Her brown jacket was torn at the sleeve, knees scraped, boots caked in dust and pine sap. But her posture was steady, her movements calm. She didn't speak as she unlocked the rear valve and released the stabilizer feet. The fuel lines hissed as they connected. Mission complete. The head nurse approached. "You're the one they sent?" Nina didn't answer at first. She just handed the woman a clipboard with initials signed in black ink. "NC. This'll hold you a few weeks," Nina said softly. "Tell your pilot crews to purge the airlocks before the first draw." "I had to climb a bit." The nurse blinked. "Climb?" But Nina was already walking back to the cab. Moments later, distant sirens pierced the calm. 3 patrol SUVs rolled into view, led by Reyes's unit, mud-splattered, lights spinning. He jumped out before the engine stopped. "Nina," he called. "We got your signal. What the hell did you leave back there?" She didn't answer, just offered him a small smirk. He climbed up beside her door and lowered his voice. "We followed the trail. Zip-tied, duct-taped, disarmed. One guy had a note stuck to his forehead that said, 'Nice try.' They came prepared," she said. "So did you." He paused, scanning her expression. "You okay?" She nodded, but her eyes drifted. "Not far, just inward." "You shouldn't have followed me," she said. "If I hadn't, who'd be here to tell the story?" Nina opened her mouth to respond, but behind him, cameras were pulling in. A news crew van, then another. Someone must have leaked her call sign. "They're calling you the tanker ghost," Reyes said, almost sheepishly. "Half the country thinks you're ex-CIA. Or a myth. I liked it better when they thought I was just a bad driver." He laughed, but she didn't. Her hand was already on the ignition. "They're gonna want to talk to you. You should say something. People need to hear it." "No," she said, turning the key. "They need the fuel. That's all." The engine rumbled to life, low and steady. She shifted into gear and looked down at Reyes one last time. "Tell them whatever makes sense. Just leave my name out of it." Before he could answer, she pulled out, slow, deliberate, vanishing around the corner before the cameras could get close. Some time later, somewhere near Yuma, Arizona, in a rest stop tucked between cactus fields and a dry, winding riverbed, Nina sat at the edge of the counter inside a quiet diner. She wore the same brown field jacket, now clean, the collar turned up. Her sunglasses rested on the brim of her ball cap. In front of her, a mug of black coffee steamed faintly. The TV above the bar played news highlights on mute, a blurry image of her scorched tanker, headlines scrolling at the bottom of the screen. "Unknown hero saves critical delivery. Who is the tanker ghost?" "Daring heist foiled by lone female driver. Military background suspected." She didn't look up. The waitress refilled her cup without asking. A few booths away, a pair of truckers were mid-conversation. "I heard she did it all without firing a shot. Just tricks and terrain." "You believe that?" "Yeah. My cousin's border patrol said one of the guys was still crying when they picked him up." They laughed. Nina didn't smile, but the corner of her mouth lifted slightly. As she stood to leave, one of the truckers caught her eye. A long-haul driver with grease on his hands and a weathered face. He paused, squinting, and gave a respectful nod. Nina returned it almost imperceptibly. No cameras, no applause, but someone had seen her and understood. Outside, the desert wind picked up. Her red rig sat in the lot, clean now, but still marked by the road. She climbed in and pulled onto the highway, disappearing into the early sun. No convoy, no escort, just the journey. This story reminds us, sometimes, real strength moves in silence and strikes without warning. What would you do if the road turned into a battlefield? Comment below, and if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to embrace the journey for more stories of unexpected heroes.